Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I'm your host, as always, Chad Porto. My cat is looking at me in the eyes like I've done something terrible to it. Joining me, as always, is my glorious co-host, Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you? Give me a second. I need to usher the cat outside into the room. Okay, we're back. I thought the cat was in a different room. I closed the door, sat down, and all of a sudden I heard thump, 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 and the cat's rubbing its paws on this box. And I'm like, how the fuck did you get in here? It's happened before later in the evening, like after midnight, and like it freaks me out sometimes because I'm like, wait, what? What's happening? Speaking of what's happening, before we jump into the meats and veggies of it all, did you see that not our very own, but Stingray from the Karate Kid is officially signed with MLW?
Honestly, it was official, but I see like the more seasons we've gotten of Karate Kid, he's become like more and more integrated into the world of wrestling, which I think is cool. So that's sick, man. Like it's already on one of the coolest shows ever, which is gonna be having its final season debuting in the coming weeks. But that's cool, man. Like it's always nice to see those celebrity crossovers when they take it actually seriously. So we know he has a tremendous amount of respect for it and stuff. So it's cool that he's as involved as he is.
It's pretty slick. It's good to see. He's done a few matches already, at least one that I can think of. Probably others. So I'm looking forward to what he can do. The MLW schedule is perfect for him because it's like once every 4 months they record or once every 3 months they record. So should be interesting to see what they do over there. That being said, Marcus, welcome to the show. It's 9:30 on a Tuesday. We're here to talk some wrestling. It may be a different time when you're listening to us, but hey, we welcome all anyway. Marcus Forbidden Door was this weekend. Typically, the Wrestle Sphere, they came out swinging because they gotta have an opinion on everything because we can't just have wrestling anymore. It's got to be some fucking war. What does Triple H call this? He doesn't call it the Forbidden Door. What does he call it? The exclusive window?
I don't know, but that's hilarious.
They got their own. It's like something portal, I think.
Yeah, something to that effect. The exclusive window is hilarious.
Exclusive window. Did you see any of Forbidden Door?
Yeah, caught some highlights. Didn't really sit down and watch the whole show because again, it's it comes off sometimes sometimes with these AEW shows I get pre-exhaustion because I know on the last it's 3 shows before the shows on the weekend, and I just know between Dynamite and Collision. We're gonna get to Dynamite. It's already gonna be like a card of eight matches, and then they're gonna find a way to put like 4 or 5 on the show. So sometimes I can get exhausted, but I caught some highlights. Forbidden Door, ironically enough, is always good. So I know it delivered mostly because that New Japan connection is strong. So I know it was a hell of a show. But just catching the minor details. But other than that, sound like some sound decisions got made. So, what did you think about it? If you caught any of it?
I did. I caught most of it. I haven't seen all of it yet. I haven't seen any of the pre-show. I really want to see the Maria May and Saraya match, and I want to see the Lucha Bros Mystico 6-man tag against the LIJ stable, which apparently had Yota Tsuji, Titan, and Hiromu Takahashi. So that sounds interesting. I don't care about Kyle Fletcher or Serpentico, although Serpentico does have a great look. I don't care about the Kings of the Black Throne, Malachi Black, Brody King, and Tomar defeating. Oh, sorry, that's my bad. Tomohiro Ishii and Kyle Riley, Roderick Strong and Gabe Kidd. I thought Roderick Strong and Kyle Riley. No, I guess they're not friends. That's right, they're not friends. So that's a four-way tag match. I'm good on watching that. I don't care about the Will Nightingale or Tam Nakano match because they took on Chris Statlander and Momo Watanabe. I did see the opener, MJF versus, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, Hichireo. It was fine. I don't think MJ... So, like, here's the problem. I don't think MJF is the main eventer. And I think they did a really solid job trying to get him over. But I feel like he's too one-note. He comes more off as The Miz to me than he does a headliner. And I know people are going to be like, well, The Miz has really improved. No, he hasn't. Stop.
In a ring?
Yeah. People keep liking to say that The Miz has improved in the ring. He got really good, after 2016. No, yeah, he was a C-tier athlete. He was never that good in the ring. This is one like Yitis all over. And I feel like MJF is a little bit better than The Miz in ring. He's a decent promo, but he doesn't have a truly definable personality. He's a jerk. Okay, cool. That's why the ratings went down with him. Cool. I don't think they have a genuine headliner on their card outside of maybe Danielson, and he doesn't want a headline, which is just fucking hilarious. I think Swerve is getting there. I do. But I feel like, they lost their two biggest draws. Three, technically. Because they lost Cody. They lost CM Punk. And then Kenny Omega's been out for, a year? So, you can't lose that kind of star power and have things be kosher, right? Ospreay's on his way up, but he's got a lot of work to do to prove that he can be a headliner. At least in the States.
Yes. Yeah, that's fun. I genuinely thought you were going to say Sting in there.
Listen, I am a fanboy of the most epic proportions. I'm not that much of a fanboy. So Omega hasn't wrestled since December. December 5th. So 8 months? Just shy of a year? So you can't lose that kind of star power and then just bounce back. And I feel like people don't get that. And as much as I don't want to be the guy who craps on AEW because I'm not. I don't have a lot of vested interest in them, so I don't have a dog in the proverbial fight. Like Mercedes Moné is not a draw, not to the level that they're paying her. I hate to say it. I wish she was. I wanted her in TNA bad, and she probably again that's the idea. With AEW, when you're a wrestler, you have to hit a certain mark to warrant your contract, right? Like if you don't help get the ratings up to 800 or 900,000 or 1 million, if you don't help sell out arenas or bump attendance to 10 grand or 10,000 people apiece, then the signing is dubbed not successful. But if you go to TNA and you sell out 2,000 or 3,000 seat arenas and you bump the ratings to 100,000. You get them in the top 100, all of a sudden it's seen as a good signing. And I feel like Mercedes Moné was far more worthwhile for TNA to get, just like CM Punk was, because she would have brought the brand a much larger presence, so to speak. More people would have been interested because of her going to TNA as opposed to her going to AEW. It's not a knock on AEW. It's because AEW is so diluted with talent that a name like Mercedes Moné makes a drop, but because the headliners in TNA aren't nearly as strong or as big, she has much more of a ripple effect should she go to a company like TNA. So I feel like she's not living up to what she could be doing in terms of moving the needle by going to a company as big as AEW, because I don't feel like she's a big enough personality to move that needle. But I think AEW is in the same place as WWE. I don't think there is one single person who can move that needle on their own. You need more. And they made, huge signings to get Okada and Ospreay and Mercedes. But with the exception of Ospreay, a lot of these individuals weren't exactly, headliners in the States in a lot of ways. Ospreay's the only one who moves the way he does and can cut a promo the way he does, and who doesn't have kind of that WWE or what's the way I want to phrase it? There's a lot of animosity against Mercedes because she left the WWE, right? And because she went to AEW specifically. I think if she leaves WWE and goes to TNA, there's not as many people upset about it, because it's like a Trinity. She left, people were excited to see what she does in TNA, and then she came back to a huge ovation. I think if Mercedes followed the same path, maybe she has a bit more aura on herself, and maybe she can elevate the needle. Okada is a workhorse who's aging out of his workhorse era. He's charismatic enough if you understand Japanese, but he's not exactly a great promo guy, and they're doing a great job just turning him into a meme, which isn't good. And if you can't cut your own promos in a language that the majority of the audience can understand, then it's going to be hard to get over. It's why Tanahashi never left New Japan, because he knew he wouldn't, be as big of a draw outside of Japan as he was inside. And I feel like these are big names, but the way they need to be used is not a way that AEW is accustomed to using them. And I feel like part of the issue with the Forbidden Door concept is that you're seeing a lot of guys be put into positions that maybe they can't be in. And if the rumors are true that Mercedes Moné is making more money than any woman in wrestling, I have to wonder if the paycheck was worth it, considering how little she's moving the needle.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring it up. I wonder, talking about the price point, I wonder how much of negotiating power she had, particularly with somebody who has as much money as Khan does, because of, to your point, like, she is probably overrated. But also, like, she's very much aware of what it means for her to be in AEW compared to where she came from, as opposed to going to TNA, because of the perceptions are different.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas people view AEW as a direct competitor, they don't view TNA in the same way. And going to that perception, but going to Naomi, because they don't view her and Trent in the same way, it came off to people like a good move for Trent to go to TNA, whereas they would have looked at it as a step down if it was Sasha.
I agree with that. I do. And you're right. It's just one of those things, though, where if you're trying to get the most bang for your buck as a name, the obvious movements, the tangible numbers, I think would have been better for Mercedes had she gone to TNA. Like, people have been like, well, they were doing 2,000 people, now they're doing 4,000 people. That's because of Mercedes. And with AEW, because they're already so big, she doesn't get to have that hat, or that hat rack to hang her hat on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then because I want to talk about the negotiations again. Like, I wonder, because I know she's clearly smart business-wise, so I wonder if she's sitting down like, look, like, you're not just signing one of the best wrestlers in the world, you're signing one of WWE's top former people. And, to cash in that, because obviously that's going to get the buzz. Like, look what she's been able to do here that she wasn't able to do there. Like, sometimes you could just do something and the flat scans just take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, on top of, however she was able to get, because if she really is the most paid woman in the business, however she negotiated that with Khan, get your money, what have you. But to your point, if you got to know that she's pulling a big price point, so is Ospreay, so is Okada. I would imagine that the Bucks' price points are only constantly going up. I can't imagine Kenny's, underpaid. So, but we've seen them kind of levy off some assets, if you will, to I guess make this to kind of right the ship because he can't just write blank checks all the time. So it's going to be interesting seeing when exactly, to your point about the price point, when exactly their next bus flip is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because to your point about the 8 years, it's like it's a few people on this, litany of people on their roster too with the whole wait, give them time. Like, it's been 10 years for them.
You're not wrong. By the by, we all know that Mercedes is Snoop Dogg's cousin. I find it offensive, dare I say even racist, that we don't acknowledge that she's also Brandy's cousin. Moesha herself is Sasha Banks. That's more impressive to me than being Snoop Dogg's cousin. I think that's because I grew up with Brandy, but still. Mercedes Moné and Moesha, cousins.
Yeah,
Love it.
I think they might lean in more into the Snoop Dogg thing because association with Brandy is also the unfortunate proxy association with Ray J.
You don't like Ray J's earbuds? Yeah, they sell them so cheap because they are cheap. Speaking of cheap, the Young Bucks and Okada defeated the Acclaimed and Hiroshi Tanahashi. This match I didn't see yet. I am looking forward to it, although I heard Tanahashi looks real bad. His knee is not doing too well. Danielson defeated Shingo Takagi. I did see this. Danielson's as good as he ever was. I think he's, 43 now? And I just think of all those years. Yeah, he's 43. I just think of all those years he wasted in WWE. Yeah, he had that WrestleMania 30 run. And people, I guess, unironically enjoy Team Hell No. But, man, they really didn't use him like they should have. Ugh. So many wasted years.
The Miz's rookie.
Ugh. Could you imagine having that numbnuts act like he has more experience? And like, you wrestled Kenta in Noah for the GHC Light Heavyweight Championship in 2005 when you were rocking that bald vegan look. All the while, Mike Mizanin was on the Real World Road Rules Challenge or some bullshit. Like, whatever. Oh, my God. That still pisses me off. One of the most respected wrestlers in the world had to play footsie with fucking Mike Mizanin. Ugh. Speaking of, only in the best way. Timeless defeated Mina Shikagawa. And I'll tell you what, man. I don't understand a thing Mina says. I don't need to.
Because you're looking. We're looking.
Like we know who, like Mina, she's won the crowd over. Just that one gif of her from Dynamite, like where they were doing the promo and she was just doing her little shimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're fans now. I do think that Timeless may not be the best women's champion. She's one of those that, we've given her chances and we've seen what she can do. I don't think she's a great wrestler. I think she's good, but you have a lot of better talent on your roster. And I feel like Timeless should be far more promo-driven, because she is a hoop to watch, right?
Yeah.
But you have so many great female wrestlers. I feel like Toni Storm isn't on that level.
Okay, let's go there for a second. Okay, Parazzo, Rosa, Deeb, where they rank when it comes? Where's she ranking at?
In terms of like in ring?
Yeah.
Rosa 1, Parazzo 2, Deeb 3. Deeb is Deeb does everything right, but she's just not. She doesn't shine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thunder Rosa is fast. She's violent. She's just brutal, and she's so unique with her presentation and her style. It works. Parazzo is so technically sound that I don't think she could have a bad match as long as the person she was in the ring with had at least 5 years of experience. I'm not even saying they need to be good. I'm saying if they've had 5 years of experience, at least 100 matches under their belt, Purrazzo can give you a 3-star match with them. She's not Ric Flair. She's not, AJ Styles. She's not, Booker T. But she's good. And that's something. I feel like with Dee, she gives you the same thing Purrazzo does in the ring, but less flashy and with less personality. And that's, it's why they invented masked wrestlers, because not everyone can have a personality. There's a reason why fans in 1999 were very big on Blitzkrieg. Dude never cut a promo. There's not one promo from Blitzkrieg in the history of WCW. The man was there for 7 months. Not one promo. But we all loved him because he did flippy shit and he looked cool. Sometimes that's all you need. Serena Deeb doesn't look cool. So she's 3. I think Thunder Rosa should be champion, or at the very least Deanna Purrazzo, or Mercedes Moné. If you're gonna pay, $1 million, $2 million, whatever it is, dollars to Mercedes Moné, making her the TBS champion seems pretty stupid. And I know that they wanted to, show her off, get her value, put over, the TBS championship and all that. By the by, I hate the TNT and TBS championship names. They're just so stupid.
Yeah.
It's just the worst. But, I feel like they signed Mercedes. They rushed her to get on screen. I don't know if they weren't expecting Timeless Toni Storm to work the way she did, or if they were expecting her to kind of, fall off a little bit, so to speak. But for the most part, it's been good. Like she's made herself into a name, that's for sure. But I feel like they may be two different kind of clashes at the moment in terms of notoriety. Trying to figure out why my one computer isn't charging. But do I?
Do you think they've been waiting on Baker in some form or fashion to come back?
Shit, they better not. The only thing Baker needs to come back to is realizing that she's not good and she needs to come back to Earth.
Yeah, I mean, the most interesting thing, obviously, we're not fans of either. Nothing personal, of course, but
It's
like
all personal.
like her and Adam not being there, they're not missed at all.
No. You're not wrong, even a little bit.
Right.
Do you think that Britt has hurt Adam Cole's prospects?
In terms of, like, over the industry or just AEW?
Yes. I would say both. Did I lose you?
Hear me now?
There you go.
You're good.
Yeah.
So I don't think so on both. I mean, that injury was, very ill-timed injury that they had to work around, and then him kind of getting kind of muffed up into the MJF stuff and not being able to really pay that off to any significance. It's definitely put him back. They may have created actually more interest putting her with him in AEW because of the whole you can get more mileage out of the couple thing nowadays. In terms of the industry, I don't think so, because Cole has seemingly done the same thing everywhere he's gone. He's shown up, he's popped, he projected face for 2 weeks, then immediately turned heel and then joined the faction, or started a faction. So it's kind of copy and paste with him. And he's just kind of projected as being, in the ilk of the Bryans and the Ospreys, and for whatever final reason. But you know how that goes.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever been that guy. Ring of Honor tried to make him that guy. Triple H tried to make him that guy. And at the end of the day, it's hard for me to say that he is that guy. He's talented. Like, we've seen him wrestle. But he comes off as a less charismatic, less muscular Shawn Michaels. And that's not a compliment. He comes off as a retread. As a Wish.com character. And I think that's one of the issues that I have with some of what AEW does is that they tie in so much to who their wrestlers are based off of what they did previously, and that's not always a bad thing. But you know they have who Roderick Strong, Adam Cole, who else? You know they're in a little group.
Yeah, the Undisputed Era. Yeah, the Undisputed Kingdom. Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, with Mike Bennett and Matt Taven and Maria.
Yeah.
That's all like from the Ring of Honor and NXT days. Like it's just more of that. Now I'm not saying that can't work, but when that is so often what you do, when you do it, it's not as special. And I feel like that's sometimes something they run afoul with. But I've never, said Tony Khan's a great booker. Because I don't think he is. Speaking of which, Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Orange Cassidy in my favorite match tonight. That was fun. I like that. I like Orange. Raj Giri of wrestling, it's like, oh, Orange is... Orange Cassidy is a laid-back, uninterested, unique individual. Like everything he is different. And I feel like when people go, well, he doesn't seem... Yeah, it's called a fucking personality, man. And like I hate that. I hate when people are like, we need to see unique, personalities. And then we get a unique personality, and it's like, oh, well, no one takes him seriously. Everyone takes him seriously. In fact, Orange Cassidy should be a main eventer in this company because his gimmick and style is so unique.
That's the point. You're gonna take him seriously when that bell rings. More than anybody else on that roster, he's been able to properly milk his character for the entire existence, properly milk his character over the entire existence of AEW, which is why he's probably had the most matches on that roster and the most wins.
Mm-hmm.
And he just works. Like, obviously, they kept him with the best friends for a long time, but then they had that falling out. But he's just... And this is one compliment we can give, I guess, Cole, going back to him for a second, and those other places you mentioned. Even if he was never really that guy, the reason why I think he got put in those positions in NXT and ROH is because he was consistent.
Mm-hmm.
He was somebody you could always go to. He'd always deliver. He was always available, and he rarely got injured. Taking that away from him really, I think, hurt him in AEW, specifically on that roster, which we know is extremely talented, even though it don't necessarily get used properly on a broader spectrum. But, you come to somebody like Orange, and he's just been able to really work that laid back, like you said, lackluster narrative, and then when that bell rings, he's turned it up specifically against guys like Ospreay and Junior, when if you don't turn it up, you're going to get massacred. So I think he's probably worked his character better than anybody probably in that company. And then you look at people elevating like Storm and a few others who you kind of found their stride, but it's few doing it like him. And I think guys like Raj Giri just kind of want what they want, or they've been kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if his favorite character is somebody like The Fiend or something. Like, sometimes people just need stuff just so in their face that is, it's kind of one of those things. But yeah, Orange Cassidy is somebody they definitely can't afford to lose. Of all, I think, because we talked about the 4 pillars, and we was like, why wasn't Cassidy in that? Because it wasn't Jungle Face, and we pray for Darby Allin every time we see him, and Sammy Gahoo, and we just talked about MJF not really being that guy despite the position. So,
And I think one of the reasons why the 4 pillars of AEW, and I'm going to say it, has failed, is because Guevara's an asshat. Jack Perry is single-handedly responsible for the downfall of this company. Right? Like, you don't piss off your biggest draw. Like, it's booking 101. Oh, what a dumbass. Darby, I think, could be a draw, could be a headliner, could be a main eventer, but he can't stay fucking healthy because he's a goddamn moron who I adore. And then MJF, he's fine. But the problem is, beyond all the extracurriculars, is that they haven't had a lot of interaction with one another. One of the reasons why the 3 Musketeers and the original 4 pillars got over is because there was a lot of intermingling. There was a lot of feuds, a lot of history built up within them. And I think there was, 1 segment where the four of them were in the ring together because they were going to be involved in a match. And that was it.
Yeah.
Like, Darby and MJF have and here's the thing, like, there's too much nuance in these feuds, right? Like everything's supposed to be layered, and there's no heels and no faces, and it's just two guys trying to. Or you have Darby Allin, a skater kid who grew up worshiping Tony Hawk, who doesn't put value on his life, who knows that he's going to be dead before most, who's going to do everything he can to die in that ring, and then you have MJF, high class, super wealthy, at least that's the image, arrogant, egotistical, like it's Dusty Flair. It's the classic wrestling rivalry. So many guys went up against, the original Nature Boy, Buddy Rogers, with the idea of it's the blue collar versus the white collar, and you could have done it. You could have had a whole feud, like a year-long feud, build up, blow off. They didn't. I think they've done some stuff together, but it wasn't successful. Not like it should have been. And I feel like that's part of AEW's problem, is they keep looking for the next, dream match. That they aren't letting any of their stories build. And they end up running out of stuff. And we'll talk more about that here in a bit. So Sabre defeated Cassidy. Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata defeated the Learning Tree of Jericho and Big Bill and Jeff Cobb. Brian Keith is another dude who was announced to have been injured. Brian Keith is great. I love the look. I love the gimmick. The problem that I have with Brian Keith is that he's got such a unique idea, right? That they're just throwing him in with the Learning Tree. Why? I don't think he needs Learning Tree. Big Bill's 40. Well, he's 37, excuse me. What is he doing with Jericho? Like, I don't get it. Jack Perry defeated Kaneshige Takeshita. Got it. Mark Briscoe, Dante Martin, Leo Rush, and El Phantasmo to win the vacant AW TNT Championship. Leo Rush was injured on this show as well. And, here's the problem. Dante Martin's great. Leo Rush, I love him. Phantasmo's fantastic. Briscoe's, he's a legacy name. And they're really trying to push Kaneshige Takeshita like he's going to be a big deal. He's not. But they're trying. And I'm supposed to care about Jack Perry's AEW TNT Championship win? I'm sorry, I don't. Who'd he beat? 42-year-old Mark Briscoe, Leo Rush, who's Leo Rush is the flakiest person since Frosted Flakes. Dante Martin has no personality, but he's extremely talented, and El Phantasmo isn't sticking around, so why would he win? It's a very bland TNT championship ladder match. Exciting to watch. It was good. I liked it. It was fine. I forgot about it 3 hours later. Mercedes Monday defeated Stephanie Vicker. I think I'm saying that right. Everyone's like, they should sign Vicker or Baker or whatever his name is. And I'm like, why? She's fine. Just go watch CMLL if you like her. Like, Jesus Christ. Or New Japan. Stardom, whatever. She wrestles for all three of them. Like, just go watch her. The AEW doesn't need to have any more women on the roster that they can't book. Naito defeated Moxley in a pretty ho-hum match. I don't know if I agree with the dialogue coming out of the match that Naito's washed. I think a problem we saw in this match is a problem that people should be realizing, and that's Jon Moxley's not a great wrestler. I've been far more... think about it. I remember when he faced AJ Styles for the WWE Championship and lost? The match sucked. And it had still somewhat prime AJ Styles. Moxley's feud with, who was it? Brock was terrible. His feud with Seth was pretty good. His feud with Roman wasn't great. His feud with just about everyone in AEW. I wouldn't say there's a lot of bangers on that one. Maybe some people will say there are. I wouldn't. I think some of his best matches have been in Bloodsport where he can just brawl. I don't think Moxley's the A plus ace of the company that people want him to be. And it's the same way I kind of feel about Josh Alexander in TNA. He's the best wrestler that the company has. But dear God, there's a reason why the company hasn't really seen a lot of growth with him as champion. It's because he's very dull. And while Moxley, I think, is a big personality, I don't think he's a great worker. And I don't think it's Naito's fault that the match was subpar. I think Moxley is a very limited worker who, if he doesn't get to brawl and use weapons, really doesn't have the creativity to tell a story in the ring. But then again, the guys who have issues with Naito online, I see have issues with him not doing the typical New Japan match as well as others. You know, the Warriors Code, the whole Bushido Road, you know, the King's Road, whatever you want to call it. You know, they don't think Naito does a great job with that. He's too sports entertainment, and not too traditional New Japan main eventer.
Quick question: with the perception of Moxley versus what we know the reality is, and clearly see what the reality is because he loses however many ounces of blood a match. Do you think somebody like Eddie Kingston bridges that gap better in terms of like brawling / technical than somebody like Moxley does?
I don't know if I would say that today. And I'll tell you why real fast. It's because Eddie Kingston's like 42. I think Eddie Kingston a decade ago, yes. His knees are a little bit shot. He's a little more out of shape. He doesn't have the same endurance he once had, or I shouldn't say endurance, the same stamina he once had. But I would say a decade ago, when Kingston was ruling Chikara, I don't think Jon Moxley had a match that was ever better than Eddie Kingston when he was the grand champion in Chikara. He had a lot of bangers, and not enough people know that era of him, because that's when I became a fan, truthfully. And I feel like nowadays people are seeing a still good version, still very good version of Kingston, but they're not seeing what he used to be. And that makes me a little sad, because he was so much better. Right now, though, I do think Kingston and Moxley are on par in the ring. But Kingston's also had far more knee injuries than Moxley. So I don't know if that's a good thing to be on the same par, same level as somebody like Kingston, who's physically, grinded his body into dust to make a living, as opposed to Moxley, who's been making 7 figures for 7 years now. So
yeah,
different wear and tear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I had called him the best COVID champion in wrestling at the time because I just think he was. I think he was on a real high streak doing that. He really was just everywhere doing everything, having all these crazy matches. But I also think a lot of that fervor came off of him just finally being able to cut loose after damn near being thrown into being a straight goof troop in WWE, particularly that 2016 when we were still doing the brand banter, and he was just going around SmackDown just being silly for no damn reason, doing some of the weirdest stuff. So when he finally got to kind of be the loose, brawling cannon that he is, it kind of felt refreshing. So, but now it kind of, we're used to it. We know what he's gonna do. We've got to know how it's gonna end. I mean, thankfully with the Combat Club, he's integrated more submissions into his style, which is, I think, aided him as a performer and as a closer, as a performer. But you kind of know what you're going to get with him. Somebody like Naito, particularly for American audiences, they're not necessarily as familiar intentionally because they just don't. If to your point about what they want to do with the young lady, Stein and the young lady who fought Mercedes. It's that mentality of, like, we don't want to go looking for it because we don't want to do the work. Bring them to us, that type of deal. So, I definitely get it. That go back and look at that match, but that clash of styles, I can understand that because, again, he's a brawler. And I think Naito's ran into that, I think, when Jericho was doing the Painmaker thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Jericho had very much an intention when he was doing those New Japan matches, not necessarily going too far off the beat path that he kind of didn't have some of his roots dating back to when he was Lionheart or whatever. So um, you always talk about how styles make fights. So I can understand how that could go awkward, but that's kind of the risk you run when you do the Forbidden Door thing because that's kind of the whole point. I guess that Americanized standard, if you will, versus that Japanese influence. So
We'll certainly talk more about Naito here in a little bit. Main event time, Swerve defeated Ospreay in a pretty good match. It might be a match of the year contender. I'll have to check the tape, so to speak. Apparently, Will Ospreay lobbied for this match because he wanted to help put over Swerve because they're apparently good friends. And apparently, Tony Khan was high on the idea. So that's why we got the match. I think it was good. I really do. I don't know if it's going to be the match of the year because, we had the, Ospreay and Alexander match was pretty damn good. There's going to be some competition for it. Marcus, if you saw the main event, do you have any thoughts on it?
oh, I thought it was solid as well. I was going to ask you because you did bring it up. If you put them against both the Ospreay Alexander matches, do they touch one of them, both of them? What do you think?
That's a good question. Maybe. I'll have to rewatch them. I think it's going to make the nominees. Yeah, it'll make the nominees for sure.
Yeah.
Swerve is... Swerve. So here's the problem with Swerve's title reign, and it's the one thing nobody... They're joking about it, but they're not really talking about it. Swerve shouldn't be a face. The dude broke into a man's home and approached a child, a baby, an infant. In certain neighborhoods where I'm from, you don't leave that house alive, let alone get celebrated for it. And I feel like in their attempt to try to make Swerve into a big face, like the Kobe Bryant, because he did that Kobe shot with him in the title that emulated Kobe's first championship in the NBA. In their attempt to do that, to make him this popular figure, they spat on reality, and I think it's holding back the perception of him as a champion because he's a dastardly human being, and yet we celebrate him. It's a little too close to home, I think. I was just thinking of a certain couple, politicians,
Yeah.
that do terrible things and yet are praised for it. And it's like I don't.
It's
I don't
weird.
like
How much of that do you put on him versus I guess how he's being written or produced or whatever? Because he very much constantly says on screen that he's not a good guy, and I definitely wanted to bring this up to you because this is going to reference a movie that we love and gonna very be relevant to recent loss that we saw in the culture. He got asked about where he kind of patterns his look because you gave him a great compliment about his aesthetic, and he brought up how he kind of influenced his aesthetic and how he moves and that just the overall demeanor after Simon Phoenix. And listening to you talk, because, obviously we love Demolition Man, in case nobody knows, R.I.P. Bill Cobbs. Looking at that, going to your point, it's like there was nothing redeemable about Simon Phoenix.
Entertaining to watch, but not a good person.
Literally Mr. Murder, Death, Kill. And then right under that, it would be somebody that would break into somebody's house and threaten their newborn.
I think the problem is so layered, right? One, because Swerve does have this aura about him, and it's hard not to find him. It enthralling, right? He captivates. But on the other side, the person he's trying to play off of is Paige, Hangman Page. And he's such a disliked face. Like, people... There's a contingent of fans that like Paige, right? But, non-AEW fans don't like Adam Page. Half of the AEW fan base doesn't like Adam Page because he's part of the reason CM Punk went the way he did. So you can't make him a face because maybe a quarter of the audience want to cheer for him. So it's hard to make him a face because he's not likable. And he's not a great promo. And in the ring, he's fine. He's not that great, though. So, like, you've got a guy who's, like, 70s across the board. Like, he can do everything well, but nothing great. And you add the fact that he has this dark cloud of the way he handled CM Punk over him. And now you're asking Swerve to be the bad guy to a guy that most fans don't like. I can see how we got to this situation, but it still doesn't make any fucking sense. Understand who your guys are, Tony. Some guys can't be faces, some guys can't be heels. Figure that shit out. Stop pushing the guys that the Young Bucks want you to, and start pushing guys like Orange Cassidy. Start pushing your Danhausen's, maybe not in the main event scene, not in AEW. Start pushing your Darby Allin, because those guys have huge fans. And you're not using them. They could be great foils for a heel Swerve, but instead, we have to deal with, the potential of Adam douchebag Page.
That's interesting, and the one thing, and I gotta ask you this real quick because I know you're gonna get into your whole AEW thing. But one thing you didn't bring up, because in terms of him being perceived as a face, what role and how much of that do you accredit to just how good Joe was at being Joe?
I think Joe has that Vader aura, where face or heel, it doesn't matter, because what he does to you is never going to be polite. Like, he can only ever be so good as a human being, because he is violence. He was the nation of violence. So I think Joe kind of has that ability to straddle the line and be cheered when he's not a good guy and be booed when he's not a bad guy, because what he does is so intense and violent. Now, the problem with Joe is he's like 43, 44, 45, and he's been long past his prime for a good decade, if not longer. So you're not going to get a lot out of him. I think him fielding the stable with Shibata and Hook, I think is the right way to go. He had an admirable world title run, right? Like, it was respectable. I do not know if you go back to that well. Now, I think you can move him to Ring of Honor, put the belt on him there. I think he could work a pretty decent schedule with some younger guys without the added pressure of having to have, AEW pay-per-view banger after banger. But I don't think you can put him back in the title scene. And, with the way Joe and Swerve worked together, with that triple threat with Page, I felt Joe didn't have the notoriety needed. Even though I don't think Page is a draw, I think he's far more of a draw at this point than Joe is. And that's partly because of the way AEW has treated Joe, and it's partly because of the way WWE treated Joe. Probably far more WWE than not. Did he even win, like, the Intercontinental? I think he won the Intercontinental title, or did he win the U.S. title? I know he won the NXT title.
Yeah, he definitely won the NXT title, and if you won the U.S., you have to really focus to remember where and when.
He won the U.S. title twice, actually.
Wow.
Like, I thought I was having a fever dream. Like, I could have sworn he was carrying around that stupid flag belt.
Okay, either Lashley or Ricochet took it off. I think it was Ricochet. But you're definitely right. I just think it was an interesting transition from Joe to Swerve, because it felt like while they were definitely rooting for him, they wasn't necessarily rooting against Joe.
Mm-hmm. Joe beat R-Truth, lost it to Ray. Joe beat Ray and lost it to Ricochet.
Yes. So then I think Ricochet had it up until he ran into the ring general. Oh, that way.
Well, Ricochet lost it to Styles. I think Ricochet was Intercontinental Champion. And that's who he lost to, right? He lost it to Gunther?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. There was a WWE pay-per-view called Stomping Grounds. So, that was a match. That was a show.
Joe was on that show?
Yeah, it was. He lost to Ricochet. I'm gonna give you
Yeah.
give you a chance to predict the main event without looking it up. You know who the main event of Stomping Grounds was?
What year was this? 2017?
19.
19.
Marcus, if you get this right, I'll send you $1,000.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Stomping Ground. God, that speaks to Joe's booking too, because he was also on their other one shot show that you probably won't be able to guess. Um, Jesus, I'm gonna say okay, Stomping Grounds. I'm gonna say this was 19. Christ, was it Kingston and it wasn't Kingston and Bryan, was it?
No, but the fact that you remembered Kingston was champion at the time is impressive. The main event was Seth Rollins versus Baron Corbin. I'm not done with Lacey Evans as a special guest referee.
Oh yeah, there ain't no way in hell I would have. I I don't even want to be the guy who remembered that to have that $1,000. That's too involved. No
Kofi
life.
Kofi defeated Dolph. Roman defeated Drew McIntyre. Bayley defeated Alexa Bliss. Bryan and Rowan as SmackDown Tag Team Champions defeated Heavy Machinery. Ricochet defeated Samoa Joe. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn defeated The New Day. And Becky Lynch retained over Lacey Evans to retain the Raw Women's title. Solid episode of Raw. So,
Yeah, that other show Joe was on was Great Balls.
oh
So
yeah, I remember that one. All right, so I have 10 points that I think could help AEW. I'm gonna run through these really fast, and then, if you have any opinions, I'd love to hear them.
gotcha.
Establish a tone difference between their two brands, AEW and Ring of Honor. I feel like that's obvious, but here we are. My second point is to separate the brands and move guys like Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, and other legacy Ring of Honor guys, your Roderick Strongs, Mike Bennett's, Matt Taven's, maybe even Adam Cole, over to Ring of Honor. Then I would either turn Rampage or Collision, depending on the size of the roster, into a Ring of Honor show. It can be officially with Ring of Honor branding or unofficially where it's just the Ring of Honor guys wrestling on an AEW show. Then I would say focus more on major events around unique concepts. I referenced Josh Burnett's Bloodsport, the No Ropes, show that he runs, or TNA's old Lockdown pay-per-view where every match is inside a steel cage. And I think if you watch like 05, 06 era Lockdown, you're going to realize how much potential that the concept had, because it was really good. The problem was that they didn't have enough uniqueness within the cages. They got too simple. But I think if they did that, they could really find themselves. Now, don't do it around one match. Don't do every match is blood and guts, right? But find a hook, like King of Trios, a one night trios match, or like Survivor Series, something. Number 5, change names for shows and gimmicks. I think one of the issues with AW is a lot of their shows suck in terms of names. All in, all out, that's confusing as shit. And then Full Gear, that's stupid. You gotta zhuzh up the names. And then, with a match like Blood and Guts, not exactly a match most people care about in terms of name. Like you did it to spite Vince McMahon. It comes off as unimpressive. It comes off as you were trying to screw over your dad. Like you're dating someone that you shouldn't be just to piss off your dad. That's what the name feels like. It doesn't feel like Hell in a Cell where it had emphasis, where it had a story within its name. It feels tacky. It feels grimdark. Number 6, disband a majority of the factions. They're retreads. There's no value in having 13 groups with the same gimmick. if you can't come up with a unique idea for the group, it shouldn't exist. I don't think that's a wild thing to say. I don't even know if half these groups are still together anymore because they come and go so frequently that it's impossible to keep track of unless you watch all, 2, 4, 5, we'll say 7 hours of TV every week, including the YouTube shows. And then, we're not even talking about the 5-hour pay-per-views, which can be 12 hours of content. I ain't got time to watch all 12 hours of content a week. Like, what are we doing? So, less groups, more uniqueness. Number 7, stop signing every major name if you're only going to relegate them to the mid-card. You have 40-odd mid-card wrestlers who either need to be pushed, de-pushed, or released. Figure it out. We don't need to keep adding to that. And I say this because we have Brian Cage in the mid-card. We had Okada in the mid-card. What are we doing? It's not great, guys. It's not great at all. Number 8, save the crossover appearances for major shows only. I love Forbidden Door. It's one of my favorite shows of the year. It feels like, though, with the partnership with New Japan, that these kind of crossovers happen a lot. And when TNA was doing it, they would save a lot of it for the World X Cup, right? So it made the World X Cup event, feel more prestigious. AEW doesn't do anything like that. They just have these random crossovers. People randomly show up and it doesn't really mean anything. And the impact doesn't linger, and that's part of the issue. Number 9, change up the commentary team. They're either too old, too unlikable, or they lack the charm that people tune in for. Listen, the only guy I would keep right now is Shivani, and he's, 68? Maybe he's only 65. 66. So, it's time to shake things up. Jim Ross needs to be retired. Love you, Jim. You need to go. When Don Callis does commentary, he's a genuinely terrible human being. I don't know why he's still on the roster. That's another issue for another day. Excalibur seems to know what he's doing, but I don't think anyone outside of the diehard AEW fans really care about him. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, Michael Cole's the GOAT. Now, listen, you shut the fuck up right now, kid. You've been around for 4 days. You do not get to make that distinction. Michael Cole's far from the GOAT. Just because he's been around for 20 fucking years doesn't mean that's been a good 20 fucking years. You can blame Vince all you want. A lot of good commentators were under Vince. Not all of them sucked as hard as Cole for a long time. He's a solid C-plus announcer. Let's stop the whole GOAT conversation. And then number 10, run more intimate venues to create a sense of ambiance that fans will want to be a part of while also creating a demand with tickets. If you only run 5,000-seat venues with a certain ambiance, you're going to be able to generate more hype. The tickets will be harder to find. It might be artificial, but it could still help. And then for a bonus, book better. That's obvious. Stop giving away major matches on free TV. Stop having main eventers wrestling lower card guys on pay-per-view. That's a direct shot to Will Ospreay and Kaneshige Takashika I fucked it up. I knew I'd get it. I knew it. I knew it would get me eventually. Fucking hell. What's his name? Hang on. Kaneshige Takeshita. Got it. Like watching Ospreay and him fight on pay-per-view. Why? He's done nothing. Kaneshike's done nothing in this company. They're really trying to push this dude. I don't know why. Who is he friends with? I know it's a Kenny Omega. I know. But, my God, we are really pushing this man. And I don't get it. He's got the personality of Don Callis' hairline.
That's hilarious, because you know who's showing more personality these days? Okada.
Okada's always had personality. I don't know if you can build around him in the state of the company right now. He's 36, he speaks broken English, and his promos I don't think are going to be great, and you kind of need a strong promo guy if you're going to have make him your world champion, or at least have a strong manager to promote him as such. But you're right. Okada leaps and bounds more impressive than Kaneshige.
Still, best pro in the company right now is Shibata.
Yeah. Shibata knows how to buck the trends. I love Shibata. I love it. It's fantastic.
Real quick, are you shifting any of the refs?
Oh, I would fire Bryce Remsburg. I would sit him down, put his cheeks in my hand, and say, "I want you to know something, Bryce. This is not a budget cut. I just hate you." And I waited until you had your whatever child on the way to do this to make it hurt more. Because you are one of the worst things that wrestling's ever produced that wasn't a threat to another human being. And then I kiss him on the forehead and leave.
No, come on now, Chad. It's a prime opportunity. You missed it. Come on to pull your classic Willy Wonka.
You get nothing. Good day, sir. Then I'd fire Aubrey as well. She's not good either. They're selling for the wrestlers, right? Like, I really hate... what's her name? The WB announcer? Who looks too much like JoJo Offerman for me to call her JoJo.
Samantha?
Is Samantha Irving? Is that who it is?
Yeah, with the curly hair?
Yeah. Looks a lot like JoJo. Far better, though. She's just a stupid fan, right? Like, she got lucky one day. She showed up and like, "Hey, I'm here for the show." "Oh, you're trying out?" "No, I'm a fan." "So you're trying out?" "No." "Okay, here's a mic." "What?" I feel like that's how that went, right? She has genuine emotion. She loves what she does. She's so excited, and it comes across that way, right? And I think it puts over everything far more than it should. And there's so many people online like, "Oh, well, she ruined." I think she had so much value. Like watching her cry when Cody won. Listen, before he became a douchebag Homelander wannabe, I cried a little bit when he beat Magnus at All In 2018. I think it was 2018. Like, that was amazing. Or when he went up to his brother after the second show, what was that, Full Gear 2018 or whatever it was? And he's like, "I don't need a tag team partner. I need my brother." Bald. So, like, I get it. Samantha Irving is fantastic. Aubrey, who I keep wanting to call Plaza, I know that's not right. She thinks she's good, right? Like, you can tell when she overreacts to moves. She's really thinking, "God, I really sold this." But in actuality, all I'm saying is, why is she acting like a Three Stooges villain? Why is she acting like it's a 1920s science fiction movie and the special effect is the director yelling, "And then there's an earthquake," and then everyone just pretends they're shaking? That's how I feel when I watch her. Like, I don't know if she's intentionally trying to draw focus, but I shouldn't know the weird faces you make as a referee. And yet I do with her, and I don't know why. Bryce is the same way. Like, it's the, "Oh my God, I can't believe you powerbombed him. I've never seen that before. You saw it 3 matches ago when you did your last match. The fuck you talking about?" So yeah, I'd fire them both. I just shit.
Yeah, for those of you who I asked that question because Chad's very much attention detail person when it comes to commentary and refereeing. So I got the last piece of the puzzle, the Dapper Yapper. Getting rid of him too?
The Dapper Yapper.
Mr. Roberts on the mic.
Oh God, yeah. Didn't that dude try to?
Yeah, I think we covered it. Something on the plane or something.
We're gonna Google it real fast. .411mania.com headline: Justin Roberts accused of asking for illicit photos from a minor. I mean, Matt Riddle still had a career, so I'm not surprised. All right, this conversation went way too long. We're over. We're going to need to cut some things. We're going to cut the WCW conversation. We're going to cut Heatwave because it's NXT. I don't give a shit. And we're going to cut Slammiversary until next week. New Japan. Kind of in a dire spot right now. They don't have any headliners. Tanahashi's washed. I think he can still do your 6-man tag matches and still provide some name value like the way like Blue Justice does or some of those other guys. But I feel like he's not where he needs to be a singles wrestler anymore. They lost Okada to AEW. They lost Ospreay to AEW. They lost Shibata to AEW. They lost Nakamura to WWE. They lost Styles to WWE. They lost Balor to WWE. Although I don't know if he was ever a technical headliner. They brought in Jericho, technically. He headlined a few. And then they tried to bring in guys like Riddle and Ziggler, and that didn't work great for them. The New Japan-specific Twitter accounts that I follow are very much concerned about the headliners in this company. And I think that's fair. The young names, like the Yu Uemoras and Shota Umanos, are not rising up the roster fast enough, and for whatever reason, there seems to be a thumbing of the nose down at Sonata right now as champion. And I don't know why. Marcus, when you look at the New Japan scene, are you a little shocked that we've found ourselves in this situation with so many, for lack of a better term, poor options for champion?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm inherently biased to Shingo Takagi and Hiroki Goto.
Mm-hmm.
But those are, Goto is basically at this point a OG there and a pillar, and Shingo is I think extremely dependable. But he's been champion already, and I don't necessarily know if they want to go back to that well. On top of they recently came off of Naito being champion, so they might be kind of trying to move away from LIJ. But yeah, it is a little bit perplexing because you didn't ever think one day you was gonna look up and see Okada in AEW, Shinsuke in WWE, kind of basically they're in retirement. And those are essentially the pillars. But I think, and get your take on this, it kind of felt like it all kind of started coming down when, because I think they heavily relied on the Bullet Club for years.
Mm-hmm.
And once that had to take a different form, because basically all of the OGs on top of the new guys that got brought in that kind of elevated it, just kind of tapered off. And once the Bucks and all that kind of left, and it had to form its own identity outside of any big name, then you see all these names kind of leaving and whatnot. I think that kind of started that whole trend. So it is surprising, but I think it's kind of forced New Japan to get out of the habit on relying on what they've always relied on because they no longer had it. But to your point, because it's taken so long for these guys to become the guys, and they haven't been able to replace the kind of big names or pull them back, because it's just been far more convenient for people to just stay in the States. It's been causing a flux, but they've been having, I think, find new stars in a lot of their divisions, particularly the juniors. So it's just, I think it's just a complete reshuffling of the deck, and the fact that Tanahashi is now in charge, I think, is probably the top of that proverbial Christmas tree of, yeah, this is not going to be the same type of Christmases we've been used to.
Yeah, you went from having a tree full of packages to not. Here's a couple things that I've noticed. When you look at the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, right? It was introduced in 2021. It's not exactly the best looking belt. Everyone but two wrestlers are in AEW. Kota Ibushi, AEW. Will Ospreay, AEW. Shingo Takagi, still in New Japan. Okada, AEW. Jay White, AEW. Sorry, three. Sonata. Sonata and Naito. John Moxley, AEW. That's not great. One of your biggest allies is single-handedly single-handedly costing you a lot in terms of headlining power because they did not expect to have Jay White, Jay White and Ospreay and Ibushi and Okada all leave. That was not something that they were preparing for. And then you look back at the fact that one of the biggest ways that they were able to continue to be on top for so long is that they got guys over heading into their title runs, or they got guys who were big elsewhere. Takagi was what, Dragon Gate or 0-1?
Yeah, Dragon Gate.
So like they got arguably the biggest name out of Dragon Gate. You know, they pilfered. Oh fuck, what's his name? He light heavyweight champion off and on, wrestled in TNA for a little while.
Shoot. Did the dude that tag with Hendry?
No, not Shishota. Hang on. He's fucking ripped. Hang on. Taiji Ishimori.
Oh, yes.
He was huge, and I want to say it was Noah for the longest time.
Yeah.
You know, they had so many guys come through, and now all of a sudden they don't. They're not making new stars. They're not signing new stars. Like Desperado, 4th run as champion, 40 years old. Sho and Yo haven't gotten over as single stars. Takahashi is, you know, he's popular-ish, but he's not moving up the rankings, so to speak. Like, he is still who he is. So, you know, I think they still have Kushida, but he's working more in the States now. They've lost a lot of talent, and they have not found a good job, and they have not done a good job replacing them. Right now, Noah, I think, is the hottest it's been probably since, you know, Kenta Kobashi retired. I don't think All Japan's back where it once was. Like, that's a long road to go. But I think they're getting there, truthfully. I think they got a lot of talent on hand that people need to be waking up to. But I think when you look at New Japan, one of the biggest issues is that they're not getting these guys anymore. They don't have any young stars that they can build around. You know, All Japan seems really popular, or not popular, but it seems really behind Yuma Anzai. He's their current Triple Crown champion. They have big hopes for him. But right now, it's just one of those things where New Japan doesn't seem to have that same kind of, you know, development, and maybe it's the ebbs and flows of life, right? Maybe New Japan needs to fall to 2nd or 3rd. Maybe All Japan and Noah need to have some time in the sun. Very possible. Now, I don't think going back to the Nick Nemeth and Matt Riddles is the way to go, but I also don't think, you know, going back to Tanahashi's champion is the way to go either. I think you need to split the difference, right? We'll see what happens. It's a very interesting, very unique developing time in this company. And part of me is like, listen, you know what would be wild? Just go get Kojima back. He's 53. He's the world champion at MLW. He's having one of the best runs of his career. Why not? Kojima was never a super athlete to begin with. He can still move well, and he can still throw those lariats. Why not? I actually think maybe the saving grace would be if they can get Josh Alexander. Because I don't know if he'll re-sign with TNA when his contract's up. And he loves Japanese wrestling, so that might be the key. Do you want to see, like, would you like to watch Alexander as a head guy in New Japan?
Absolutely. I think he thrives somewhere. I think he thrives. We can call him for the longest for him to be in a G1. He's built for it. But it would all contend on how situation with the fam. how long he want to be and how you get that situation, how long he want to be away. That's the only thing I think for a long time that's it's been a thing. A lot of guys just had to make the decision that they were going to just kind of stay in the pain. That's why that relationship is kind of tapered off because just the traveler just it gets old after a while. So I guess for a lot of guys, AEW is kind of that bridge, being real competition, but also stateside. So, um, but yeah, I think about like Alexander because most like you, I don't know if he's gonna resign either based off the interview that he gave when he initially resigned. It kind of was not his hands. He kind of got the option. They picked him up. So um, I wouldn't be surprised if he probably doesn't New Japan. Like I said, I think he thrived in the G1. But it'll just go all of what they do with him. Would you throw him in a faction right away like they like to do?
No.
Yeah.
I think that's the way you get him over. Is you have him come in and anti-faction it and just kind of rip people to shreds. So, I think that's a way to get him over. Get him ingratiated with the New Japan of it all. Maybe have him be a Bullet Club hunter. Maybe have him be the reason Bullet Club finally dies. Maybe what they need to do is just push Kenta. Now, I know he's 43. He's not exactly young. And I know he's lost about 2 steps. But I think he's got enough notoriety still that maybe he could be a headliner for a little bit. We'll see. Speaking of making new headliners, Money in the Bank's this weekend. I don't care. We'll see how it goes. It's another 5-match card, folks, so you know.
Yeah, since about it was on thing talking about they didn't see any of the Money in the Bank, and we know not the biggest hugest fans of the Money in the Bank concept here at Wrestling Underground. However, don't complain about not getting new stars and then see a lineup of guys who have never had the opportunity to be world champion or be pushed in that particular spotlight, then complain that they're the ones that's in the Money in the Bank match when that's the whole narrative around the opportunity. I am looking forward to seeing the latest edition of How Does Punk Screw Over McIntyre this week. You know it's coming. You know it's coming.
As long as it's not Jey Uso, man. As long as it's not Jey Uso.
You might be jinxing it. I'd like it to be Knight, although nobody has ever won Money in the Bank and then decided to cash in for a mid-card title. So, him and Logan might cancel out each other in that match. It'll be cool if it was Andrade. But, that might just be wishful thinking. So, I think it might be too soon for Hayes, but I'll be pleasantly surprised if it was. So, but I am looking forward more to the men's than the women's.
I could see a Edge situation here where LA Knight wins it, loses to Logan Paul, and then on the same night he loses to Logan Paul, he beats whoever. I could see that. It wouldn't be great, but I could see it. Jey Uso's Yeet gimmick is throat and sun-worthy, so no, I'm good. Carmelo Hayes, I agree, it's too soon, but hey, it would be shocking. And he has a year. I think Chad Gable's a real possibility. I don't think Andrade is, honestly. I think it's really down to Gable or Knight on this one, or NJ, but fuck me, I don't want to see Jay. You may not agree with this, and fair if you don't, but I think the Usos are terrible wrestlers. Like, as a tag team, we were blinded because, like, we didn't realize how limited they were. Because they're often selling a lot for guys like the New Day and the Colognes and others like that who are really good at wrestling. And the Usos, just did the Young Bucks of it all. And I've never given the Young Bucks much credit for being truly inspiring wrestlers. But watching them as single stars, the Usos specifically, watching them as single stars, I've realized that they aren't good. Every time I watch Jimmy or Jey Uso wrestle a singles match, I'm just like, oh, this is rough. So I don't think it's going to be Jay. At least I hope to God it's not Jay.
Yeah, it's one of those things when we talk about it. Sometimes two people are just better together.
Mm-hmm.
I commend Jay for the way that he has and taking this ball that he's been given and running with it. But he's also another one of those guys like give him his brother's theme song and let me see if he gets this run. Because much like other guys, I think a significant portion of why he's getting his fanfare is because of this song. Not take away from any of his personal swag or ability in the ring, but that damn company, those fans, they love a good theme. It's why Rollins can just come out 5 times a show. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to see if he be where he is now in terms of popularity. If he had a bad Death Rebel song, or however that goes.
So you mean a standard one?
Yeah, version one of the whole thing. Yeah. So, um,
The one.
yeah, but yeah, that interesting to see how Punk's gonna get involved in this whole thing.
Then we have the women's Io Sky, Chelsea Green, Leia Valkyrie, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Zoe Stark. It's got to be Tiffany Stratton, right?
I was going for either Naomi or Green. They're crazy enough to give it to Green
Yeah, I could see
just
that.
because of the antics. Yeah.
Yeah, Chelsea Green's a popular enough personality. I think I could see it, but I think she's not great in the ring, and I would prefer not to see her with it. I don't think Io Sky is going to win it, and I hope she doesn't. Mostly so I can see all the people who are like, "Be patient, be patient." Just freak out. It'd be hilarious. Damian Priest and Seth Rollins. Priest, because they keep not taking it off of him, and every time they don't, that title belt loses more and more of its value, and it didn't have a lot to begin with.
Yeah,
Admittedly.
yeah. You know this. I'm probably more of a Priest guy than you, and I wanted this to work with him, but this whole thing was reminding me of what happened when Aries kind of got lost in the shuffle back when he first became TNA World Champion and kind of got lost in the aces and eights of it all.
Mm-hmm.
His factions going to hell in a handbasket, and the three guys that are kind of over him right now, being Rollins, McIntyre, and Gunther, all rank above him, and they're under Punk. So he's really lost in the shuffle.
And honestly, man, that might be the only way to salvage this. Put it on Punk. He's really the only guy that has enough notoriety and power to carry it. So we'll see. Zayn and Braun Breaker. I think Braun wins this and wins it fast. I love it. WWE fans are already like, hey, you know what? Braun Breaker's really not that interesting. He's only got that one thing. I'm kind of over him. I love it. I love it because it just shows me how fickle these WWE fans are sometimes. I think Braun's winning it. I think he's going to make for one interesting Intercontinental Champion. Marcus?
Hey, it was good. Like Zayn, love Zayn, but Braun is hitting a deal. I didn't know how I was going to go. Didn't know because I'm like, oh, they switched his theme. They're doing something different with him, but they have really booked him really good with that whole narrative of you get a prime Steiner on your damn roster and you don't put me in the King of the Ring and then make that a breeding point to have him go off and start killing dudes. It was brilliant. So I'm right there with you. I think this will be a brilliant win. Classic Sammy is gonna fight to the end, but ultimately he just can't overcome that badass. So
No, they will not. Main event: Cody, Randy, and Kevin Owens versus the midline of Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, and Jacob Fatu. We don't know who it's going to be. As long as it's Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu, I'm going to be somewhat interested. If it's Solo and Tonga, I'm going to be super not interested. It's not great. I don't know why people think, God, WWE fans are so easy to please. It's like you've been feeding them nails every single day. Just make them eat like carpenter nails every single day. And then you give them rotten spinach. And like, oh my God, this is so much better. Yeah, you're right, it is. Doesn't mean it's good. Oh,
yeah,
God.
Yeah, the whole fan base is like Eddie and Eddie. Like they really spent that entire series run going after Jawbreakers like it was Kobe beef or something.
Right. Jesus. All right. We're done for the night. Show went longer than I thought. We didn't get to half the segment, so well. Be sure to check us out at the website, realnerdcorp.com, REALNERDCORP. We're on Twitter at NERDCORP. Marcus, you can be found on Twitter as well, Paradox Kid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, TRUEPENNYSHOW. That's True Penny Show on Twitter. Check them out there. I'm on Twitter, Chad Nerdcorp, CHADNERDCORP, and on the Instagram at Chad's Vital Hut. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance, remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night.